Now, I know that the curmudgeons amongst you will have already packed up all the Christmas decorations and all memory of Christmas is gone. Um, and you'll have perhaps celebrated the New Year in some degree of style, perhaps not. But the more eccentric amongst us, well, we continue to celebrate Christmas right up to its old traditional date, which was February the 2nd. So in our house, the decorations will still be up and we'll still be celebrating in a subdued way. But of course, what came into its own at this time of year was all the songs that were not necessarily carols, not necessarily songs that are about the birth of Christ or the events around that particular time. These are songs which were meshed in with those carols and would be sung by everybody. And this particular one is a wassail song. Now, you hear a lot about wassailing at Christmas. I'm always getting Americans saying, well, what actually is it? Well, traditionally, there's two types of wassailing. There's the wassailing where you go out, usually in the early weeks of the new year, into the orchards or into the fields, but usually the orchards, and you take pots and pans and guns and you make as much noise as you possibly can in the orchard to frighten away the evil spirits and to encourage the good spirits of the trees to wake up and to produce a good harvest in the coming year. Very important that you have a good harvest. You know, we live in an age where harvests come and go and most of us aren't affected by them, but in our history, a bad harvest was a real problem for an awful lot of people, particularly the poor of the parish. And wassailing, the other aspect of wassailing, was where the poor of the parish went around the houses and they'd take a wassail bowl, a little wooden bowl or possibly a pottery bowl, and it would be filled with ale or cider, and they'd offer it to the householders as to vouchsafe that they would have a good new year, a good harvest. And the hope was, the expectation was, they'd be asked in and they'd be given cake and ale and cider and possibly something a little stronger. Bear in mind, most of these people, if you're poor in, say, the 1700s, you don't see a really strong beer because it's expensive. You know, it's not something you drink very often. And so that was the hope. And there's a verse in this where they put a very, I was going to say a hint, it's not a hint at all, it's a very clear indication. Don't give us any of your weak beer, your small beer, and we'll have it from that special pot that you've got over there with the good stuff. And they're taking the opportunity to twist the knife a little bit on the rich folk to look after the poor. Very important. Poor people, you know, in a bad winter, poor people died. And the churches like this, the pulpit was constantly reminding the better off sort of folks, don't forget, remember the poor. You know, you have to look after them at this time of year. And here we are with this beautiful song from the English-speaking part of Wales, the Gower. I'm always accused of never singing Welsh songs. Well, I don't speak Welsh, and most Welsh folk songs are in Welsh. Beautiful, very frustrating because I can't sing them. But this one is in English, and I've compiled 3 or 4 of the 5 wassail songs from around Great Britain to give us enough verses to do a nice version of this. And I particularly love the last verse because whoever's singing it very clearly points out to these people, don't take the view that because you're rich and wealthy that everything's going to be fine. They know full well that in a bad year, poor people will suffer terribly and some of them will die. But they just put a little reminder in at the very end that we'll pray that we survive through this long year and we'll come here again next year and we'll drink your cider again. And the last line is, but we'll also see if you're still here, because being rich and wealthy is no guarantee that you're going to see it all the way through the next 12 months. So, you know, you've only got to look at an English churchyard to see how young most people died compared to today. Anyway, the Gower Wassail. A wassail throughout all the town. Our carpet is white and our ale is not brown. And our cup has been carved from the elderberry bough. So I'll raise it and drain it, drink your health now. Fal-de-dar, 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 fal-de-dee, fal-de-dar, oh, fal-de-dari, sing to-ra-li-o. Why, you lords and you ladies sat warm by your fire, while it's we poor wassail boys stand cold beside the byre. Oh, you pretty fair maids, with your silver-headed pin, pray lift up the latch, love, and let us all come in. Fal-de-dar, fal-de-da, fal-de-dar, fal-de-dee, fal-de-der, oh, fal-de-dari, sing tooralio. Why, we pray that your apple trees prosper and bear, so that you might have cider in the dark of the year. And if you have 1 barrel, pray you have 10, so that we can drink your cider when we come here again. Fal-de-dar, fal-de-da, fal-de-dar, fal-de-dee, fal-de-der, oh, fal-de-dari, sing tooralio. Why, you lords and you ladies, pray do not forbear to fill up our wassail bowl with your cider and your beer. But we'll none of your pale beer and none of your small, rather draw it from that kilderkin that you've hid against the wall. Fal-de-dar, fal-de-da, fal-de-dar, fal-de-dee, fal-de-der, oh, fal-de-dari, sing tooralio. Why, it's we poor wassail boys are weary and we're cold. Please place some small silver into our brown bowl. Aye, and if we survive through another long year, then we'll come here again and see if you're still here. Fal-de-dar, fal-de-da, fal-de-dar, fal-de-dee, fal-de-der, oh, fal-de-dari, sing tooralio. Oh, I know by the moon that I've come not too soon, and I know by the stars that we've strayed not too far. I know by the drum that we are still in sound, and I know from these orchards we're safe on home ground. Fal-de-dar, fal-de-da, fal-de-dar, fal-de-dee, fal-de-der, oh, fal-de-dari, sing tooralio. Now, this next song is Elizabethan. I think it's an absolute corker. It really is a little cracker. It's a secular song, but I suppose it's at the heart of the celebration of Christmas in Elizabethan times. They all believed in the birth of Christ. They all believed that this was something to be celebrated in a massively extravagant and wonderful way. And I like this song because it's almost the corollary of the wassailing song. This is written sort of from the point of view of the householder. This is what you do at Christmas and the 12 days of Christmas up to the 6th of January. Because the Puritans at this time were very good at persuading people that they shouldn't celebrate up to the 2nd of February. No, 12 days and then back to work, back to your loom. Apprentices, 12 days off should be enough for anybody. That was their pretty miserable attitude to the whole thing. In fact, remember, during the Civil War, they banned Christmas. The celebration of secular Christmas was banned. So songs like this, weren't supposed to sing them. You couldn't kiss people under the mistletoe and things like that. It was all gone. So happily, that all came to an end, as awful things like that always do. And we're left with this, I think, great song. And there's it's almost like they got this from a self-help book. There's a wonderful verse in here that says, "'Tis ill for a mind that's to anger inclined, to dwell on small injuries now." And I just think that could have been written 5 or 6 years ago by some Californian sage, trying to persuade people on the internet that it doesn't do you any good to dwell on small stuff. Nearly said something else there, forgetting him in a church. Anyway, I just think it's a fabulous song, and it speaks right across 500 years to us today. So this is Drive the Cold Winter Away. This is what you do when things are getting really cold, as they did in those days, because they're in the last part of the last ice age. So, the Thames freezes every year to a depth of about 10 or 12 feet. So that gives you some indication of how cold it was back then. So it's very important to have all the mechanisms in place to deal with very cold winters. And this song outlines some of them. All hail to the days that merit more praise than all of the rest of the year. Why welcome those nights that double our delights, as well for the poor as the peer. Good fortune attend each merry man's friend, who doth but the best he may, with righting old wrongs and singing of songs to drive the cold winter away. With righting old wrongs and singing of songs to drive the cold winter away. Now this time of the year it's spent in good cheer, and neighbours together will meet, for to sit by the fire in earnest desire, each other in love to greet. All grudges forgot are soon drowned in the pot, all troubles aside they lay. For a song and a tale with a pint of good ale will drive the cold winter away. Why, a song and a tale and a quart of good ale will drive the cold winter away. Now your neighbours will come for to mask and to mum with wassels of nut brown ale, and they'll drink and carouse with all in the house, as merry as bucks in the dale. And cake, bread and cheese must be brought for their fees, to make them the longer stay. For liquor is spent with better content, to drive the cold winter away. Much liquor is spent, but with better content, but to drive the cold winter away. Now 'tis ill for a mind to anger inclined, to dwell on small injuries now. So if wrath shouldst thou seek, do not give her thy cheek, nor let her inhabit thy brow. Cross out of your books all malevolent looks, they will but your beauty decay. But rather consort with mirth and good sport, for to drive the cold winter away. But rather consort with mirth and good sport, for to drive the cold winter away. All hail to the days that merit more praise than all of the rest of the year. Why welcome the nights that double delights, as well for the poor as the peer. May good fortune attend each merry man's friend, that doth but the best he may. So most consort with laughter and sport, to drive the cold winter away. Why, you all must consort with laughter and sport, to drive the cold winter away. Happy New Year.